Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining tonight's session of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at a very interesting topic, effective exit management and offboarding. Effective exit management and offboarding. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special person who will be facilitating this session. She is Oyindasola Ohanogo by name. She is a seasoned human resource practitioner with well over 12 years experience of active general HR practice. She first cut her teeth in HR at the then Intercontinental Capital Markets Limited, a subsidiary of Intercontinental Bank, now merged with Access Bank. Oyinda sees human resources as a ministry into which he is called to shape destinies and influence lives for better productivity and output, both at the workplace and in other areas of life. She has been a human resource manager in several organizations like VFS Global Services Limited, Ultima Studios Limited, producers of Who Want to Be a Millionaire and Project Fame. And she acted as a change agent by setting up structures, developing policies, and putting in place human resource programs and procedures in line with global and best HR practices. In this unprecedented VUCA world, which we find ourselves, Oyinda has been able to actively engage teams working remotely across countries while ensuring peak performance and a work-life balance. Oyindasola Ohanogo is a master's degree holder in managerial psychology from the University of Lagos. She is a member of several professional bodies, some of which are the Association of Professional Negotiators and Mediators of Nigeria, Nigerian Bar Association, the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, and the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. She is currently studying management, human resource as an MSc student with Swansea University, United Kingdom. Oyinda enjoys counseling, reading, writing, and spending time with her family. Ladies and gentlemen, let us appreciate our facilitator, teacher, mentor, colleague tonight, Oyinda, as she takes over the virtual lecture. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adeosun. Please, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Loud and clear. All
right, sir. Thank you very much for the privilege of sharing with everyone on this platform. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening. We're going to be sharing on effective exit management and offboarding, and I'm hoping that this will be a very interactive session, as everybody has some experience with irrespective how little, with everything. You might have read up on something, you might have experienced it yourself. It doesn't matter the side of the table you are, whether you're at the other side as the team member or as the staff who is exiting, or you are at this other side as HR or management staff who is conducting the exit process. So one way or the other, if we've been in the workplace, we would have experienced one or two things about this. And at the end of the session, I'd really like us to share perhaps our few experiences in how it has been handled at our different workplaces. So effective exit management and offboarding. There are different words here. We have effective, we have exit, we have management, and we have offboarding. So when we look at, okay, so when I'm trying to go to the next slide. Yeah. So what does the word exit bring to your mind when you hear the word exit? You know, when you hear the word exit, you remember a door. Remember an access either to or from. You remember movement. You think of movement from a place, movement to a place. You think of stepping out of something. You're stepping out from somewhere and you're stepping into another place. You're thinking of a departure when you're talking about an exit, and then you're thinking about a farewell. So that is what the word exit brings to mind. And then going forward, we want to define the keywords, because we have the topic effective exit management and offboarding. We have the word effective from dictionary, says successful in producing a desired or intended result. And then we have the word exit, which we have tried to simplify in the previous slide. It says is the act of leaving a place. The management of it is the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. That means we are trying to deal with this exit process. And offboarding speaks to the process that leads to the formal separation between an employee and a company through resignation, termination, or retirement. So from this offboarding definition, we can see that there can be different types of exits. We can have the voluntary exit, we can have the involuntary exit. So some of the voluntary ones, we can even have an involuntary resignation. We have a voluntary resignation. We have the termination. The termination can be termination of a contract. Maybe the contract has come to an end. It might be the termination might be from the employee or from the company. And then we have retirement, which is the end of service. So those are the definition of the keywords. And then merging the keywords together, we'll look at the definition as a whole. The definition of effective exit management and offboarding is therefore the process of ensuring that the formal separation between an employee and a company is successfully dealt with in order to produce the desired or intended results. What results are we looking out for? We're looking out for a peaceful exit. We're looking out for an exit that is properly managed, an exit that will not cause chaos for current employees and future employees, an exit that will not cause chaos for the organization as a whole. So an exit that will not ruffle feathers. So that is the intended result of an effective exit management and offboarding. Best exit management practices. You know, we speak about best practices. We speak about global practices, or people also speak about global best practices. So what are the practices that we're looking out for? What are the practices that should guide how we manage exits at the workplace? So here I've written there that it is important to state that every organization must have an exit policy. So you must have an exit policy that guides. So what is a policy? A policy is actually a guideline, it's a set of procedures, a set of processes drafted together in a single document. This document must be accessible to all, must be transparent. Everybody must know what the exit policy is. So if I say I work at ABC company or ABC organization, what is the exit policy? Every employee must be able to say that this is the exit policy of this place. By the time I'm leaving, this is what the exit policy, this is what I'll be subjected to, this is what will be required of me. So this is the foundation and the ideal situation for an effective exit management. So that is the basis of everything. You must have a policy. It is not at the time when an employee is about to leave for whatever reason, then we then start rushing about trying to find out what to put in place, what to do to make the exits seamless. So I'm bringing here also that, however, there might be situations where the staff's exit is involuntary or forced, in which case some of the necessary processes involved in an exit policy will be missing. You know, we have processes in place that we must follow, we must adhere to ensure that we have a good exit process. However, if the exit is forced, for instance, is involuntary, or it's a termination of service before the person is supposed to leave the organization, there are some things you can't naturally tell the person to come and do. You can't tell the person to sit down and conduct an exit interview with you, for instance. Some people might be hostile, so you might not be able to get an exit interview from the person. So that is the meaning of this statement that I've put there. A good exit policy sets out the processes and steps to be taken in the case of an exit. I've spoken to that the processes you must have a step-by-step process. Then the exit policy must be in line with the relevant labor laws. So this is very, very important. This is very, very important. We cannot overemphasize this because we have found out that from experience, we have some exit cases that I'll share with us later. Exit cases that have come up and you find out that it is not in tandem with the existing labor law of that region. So I've worked in a place where we have staff scattered all over different countries, and you find out that you're working in Nigeria and then you have perhaps a staff in Ghana and you are trying to apply the labor law in Nigeria to the Ghanaian staff. You find out that if the labor law in Nigeria, for instance, says that you should, the staff should give 1 month notice period, you find out that the labor law in Ghana says something different. So how are we going to have a general exit policy? We can't have, in such a case, we can't have a general exit policy for all those countries. We must have specific exit policies specific to each country in line with the labor law so that we don't run foul of the law by the time the staff is exiting the organization. So I've listed in no particular order the steps that we need to take, those things that should be in the exit policy. Announcement of exits, we'll go into details later. Announcement of exit must be there. The exit interviews, I spoke briefly about that previously, where we get feedback on working areas and improvement areas. Who better to give it than an exiting employee who can speak without fear or favor? At that point, the employee doesn't have anything, really doesn't have anything to lose anyway. So you can sit the person down and get a sincere feedback on what has worked for you here. What do you think we need to improve on? What do you think that, we need to strengthen? You know, what do you think we still need to continue doing and really emphasize? You know, so those are what the exit interviews are about. Then we have the handover session. The handover is where we onboard the successors. It's a knowledge transfer session. So like I said, we'll speak more about those in details. Then we have the return of assets. We have various assets. Some people have company cards, some people have phones, some people have company tokens, laptops. There are several things that you, in some cases, in fact, you return uniforms. So those are some of the assets that you return to the organization and which must be specified in the exit policy. We have notice period. This is very, very important. You know, some people want to leave and they have different, I've seen a situation where people want to leave and they write that I'm leaving, today is September 23rd, for instance, I'm leaving today and I'll leave my leave period, use my leave period as notice period. Some organizations do not accept that. Some organizations want you to use your leave, your notice period as a proper working period where you would hand over properly to the next person. So those should be specified in the exit policy. Then we have the official farewell and appreciation. This is also important to send the person off well. However, it depends on the circumstances of exits. So it's not in every case that this is also applicable. The activation of email accounts, where you have email accounts where we have different, we have different accounts now. We have the Slack, we have different accounts that people are signed up to. You want to deactivate that and you want to put it in the exit policy, how that should be managed. Recommendation certificates. So this recommendation certificate is not common in Nigeria. However, it's common with the Francophone countries where you have, even if the staff joined you and worked for 2 days only, you do a recommendation certificate and you would write there that this person is not really a certificate saying that this person has done well, but this is, and that's what they call it, but it's written in French. It's a certificate where you write the date of birth of the person, you put the person's name on it, and then you have how long the person has worked with you. You just put it there so as to show that this person has actually worked in this organization. We have the exit pay. This also does not apply in every circumstance, depending on how the person exited the organization. There might or there might not be an exit pay. Then we have exit reference to future employers. So this is the reference letters. These are the reference letters that come in after the staff has exited the organization, asking for reference to another organization. So these are all the steps, all the processes that should be contained in an exit policy. And like I said, most importantly, it should be streamlined to meet the labor laws of that country. It should be country specific. It should be region specific. You shouldn't apply a general labor law practice to every country. You take the US, for example. And the US is quite big. You have different labor laws for every province. So you want to streamline according to what that provincial law states. So it should be in line with the labor laws. Okay, so we'll go to the exit process proper. So the first thing is the resignation letter. Resignation letter in the case of a resignation where the staff then writes that I'm leaving the organization. The person doesn't have to put a reason there, but the person is telling you I'm leaving the organization. So it must be dated. For it to be valid, it must be dated. You don't write a resignation. Ideally, you don't even write a letter without a date, but we've seen so many examples. You send a letter, it's not dated, it's not signed, it's not addressed. So it must be dated, it must be addressed. Usually offer letters come, you can send a resignation letter in the way the offer letter came. So if your offer letter came by email, without a signature, you could also send your resignation letter by email. But ideally, your resignation letter should be a proper letter. It should be dated. It should be addressed to the human resource lead or the hiring manager, because it's not in every case that you have a human resource person on ground. So you want to address it to the hiring manager, the human resource lead. Where the hiring manager is the CEO, you address it to the CEO. You address it to the appropriate authorities. You state the notice period, if any. So the notice period must be stated there. I'm resigning, I'm giving the mandatory 4 weeks notice, I'm giving the mandatory 2 weeks notice, or the mandatory 6 weeks notice, or if there's no notice period, then that could be left blank. Then the resignation letter should contain the last working day. So in some cases, the staff doesn't know what the last working day is. The staff waits for the HR person to calculate the last working day and send back. So that might be omitted, but the resignation letter should ideally contain all those things, and then it must be signed. It must be signed. So that's the resignation letter coming from the staff to the hiring manager or the human resource lead or representative. Then we have the acceptance. So this part is often missing in some exit processes, where the HR receives the resignation letter and does not acknowledge, does not accept it. The staff doesn't know the next steps. So we should do the ideal thing as HR professionals and send an acceptance of resignation letter. So if we're not yet sure of what to do, we can initially send an acknowledgement via email. If that is how we've received it, we send an acknowledgement via email saying that this is to dear Mr. A, dear Mr. B, this is to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated so you must put the dates there so that the employee knows that the resignation letter has been seen and the date has started counting from then. You acknowledge then when you send the proper acceptance letter, you need to acknowledge the contributions to the employee to the organization, if any. And put if any here, because it's not in every case that you have employees who have really contributed to the organization. So you put the contributions of the employee to the organization, if any. Then in this case, it is mandatory to state the final working day as the HR representative or as the HR lead or the hiring manager, as the case may be. You calculate the final working day based on the notice period that the staff has given, and you state it in the resignation letter. It must be clear, because the person has to know that this is my last working day. This is when I finally leave this organization. State the expected benefits, if there are any expected benefits. In some organizations, the HR that calculates. In some organizations, the finance that calculates it. In some organizations, it's both of them that calculates the benefits. So you state the expected benefits, you do a breakdown. At times, what we want to do, HR professionals, we hide behind just giving the person a lump sum, and we don't want to break it down. But it's ideal, it's proper, it's only proper to be transparent, to let the person know that this is, I'm deducting money for the laptop that was missing the other time, or I'm deducting money for, maybe you gave a lanyard or something, I'm deducting money for that. Or I'm deducting money for, you're not giving enough notice period. You're supposed to give 4 weeks and you're giving 2 weeks. So we're going to deduct the 2 weeks. It must be transparent so that the staff knows that this is what I'm going on with. And then it must be signed. To validate it also, this letter must be signed. Announcements to the team. So you have a team of people working and you have somebody exiting. You want to announce to the team that this person is exiting. It helps a lot. I've seen scenarios where the announcement was not done and people were wondering what is happening. And ideally, the staff has friends, and the staff would have friends in the organization who's about saying, I'm leaving. The staff can paint different pictures, different scenarios to people. We are human, it can paint itself as a victim, whereas maybe it might be the one to blame. So you want to announce to the team as the HR lead or the HR manager or the hiring manager, to announce officially to the team, this person is leaving. And why this is very important to be done by the HR person is because it's the HR that introduces this person, or the hiring manager that introduces when a new team member joins. You send an email out, this person is joining the team, you welcome the person to the team. So on the reverse, when the person is leaving the team now, there should be an announcement saying that this person, some people even do disclaimers, but that is in the case where you have a fraud, you do a disclaimer to say that this person is no longer with the organization, deal with this person at your own peril, but you want to announce to the team. So the reasons for leaving must be clearly stated to remove any ambiguity and douse any tension the exit may cause, because exits do cause tension. If the team does not know why the person is leaving, then there might be tension. Then after the announcement, you want to start the handover process. For different individuals, different staff, handover processes can be very rigorous. So you find out that in this, we work remotely. Most organizations work remotely now, or in an hybrid, using a hybrid work model. You find out that someone tells you that they're not able to join your call today, they're not able to join your call tomorrow. You can't physically get hold of the person is not in the office. So you want to start your handover process on time. As soon as this person announces their exit, you want to start this handover process on time. There are two parts of the handover process. You have the handover document. The handover document must be a proper handover where there will be a knowledge transfer. This person, the exiting staff, will detail every project he is working on, every project he has completed. He writes it down in details, and it should cover all aspects of the work of the exiting employee. So at a glance, anybody, because it's not every time you have somebody to hand over to. So in case there's nobody to hand over to, the handover document serves as a reference document for whoever is coming to take over. The person will see what has been, grounds that have been covered. The person will see what else needs to be done. The person will see ongoing projects. So that's what the handover document helps to do. Then you have the knowledge transfer session. This is an ideal situation where you have somebody you are handing over to. But even if you don't have someone else you're handing over to, there should be a walkthrough session with even the HR person. There should be a formal knowledge transfer session where the exiting employee can formally discuss the handover document with their successor. The session should involve the line manager and the human resources lead or representative. So you must have a session. This is the one-on-one, the face-to-face session. Face-to-face can be face-to-face now, because the word is, it's a global village now. So you want to hold that session. You want every person who can be present, every person who is a stakeholder in the process to be involved, so that if, for instance, the HR person misses out some information, there's the line manager who does not miss out that information. There's the other team member who does not miss out that information. So I've spoken to the handover process now, and I've said that it entails two stages. We have the handover document, and then we have the knowledge transfer session. Then we'll move to the next one, which is the exit interview. I spoke briefly to that earlier. It's a session where the exiting employee gives feedback to the organization. This session is very important because the exiting employee has nothing to lose by giving honest feedback to the organization. So you try your best to get feedback from the exiting employee. So there should be at least 2 sessions, one with the line manager and another with the hiring manager or human resources lead or representative. So the reason for this is this. I've seen situations where you would have an exit interview and you'd have the line manager and the HR lead in the same session, and you find out that the staff doesn't say anything. And then you see another scenario where you have another session just with the HR manager. You find out that what the staff will tell the HR manager in confidence will be different from what the staff will tell the hiring manager in confidence. So you have different sessions so as to be able to glean the most from this exiting employee. So we have at least 2 sessions. Well, like I said earlier, this is an ideal situation where this person is leaving on maybe their own terms or amicably. Then you can sit this person down to say, okay, we want to have an exit interview with you. Then we have the farewell meeting. This would also depend on the circumstances of exit, such as voluntary resignation, retirement, end of contract, and any other amicable end of employment. It can take a virtual or physical form. It may or may not include refreshments, depending on the available budget. But the most important part of this session are the tributes and improvement areas to the exiting employee. You want to tell the employee wants to hear from the people he or she has worked with for the past 5 years, for the past 10 years, for the past 1 year, for the past 6 months, in fact. You want to celebrate everybody who has contributed one way or the other to the progress of the organization. You find out that there are some employees that join, and within 1 month, you begin to see landmarks of what they've done. You begin to see milestones. You begin to see a lot of progress. Now the person maybe has to leave. We in an organization where I worked, we had a staff who worked for just a month. After the staff said, oh, I got a scholarship, I have to leave. I'd been processing it before now, and the scholarship came at the last minute, and the person had worked for a month. But there was a farewell meeting for the person. So it doesn't matter the length of time. What matters is the contribution to the organization. So you want to have that session. It makes the employee feel valued. It makes the employee know that, yes, my contributions were, it was not, say to the employee, say to the person's face to say, oh, you've done well here, no matter the short time. And, such an employee looks forward to still having dealings with the organization even after the person has left. Like I said, if it's a physical meeting, it could be it could include refreshments. If it's a virtual meeting, you have refreshments there. So you talk about the tributes, and then it's a session where you talk about improvement areas also to the employee. As you're leaving now, all those disappearing acts you used to do on me, don't do it when you go to your next place. Don't do this. You want to give in a friendly environment, in a it's not an appraisal session, so it's not a tensed environment. The person is leaving, so you want to also help the person on their journeys in their career. Then we move on to the activation of accounts. You can have the salary accounts. I've worked in a place where it was the organization that opened the salary accounts for the staff, took letters to the bank, and we want to open a salary account for this person. In such a case, the organization can close that account or liaise with the bank if they can migrate that account to a personal account for that individual, because there must have been a lot of transactions there. So maybe the individual does not want to lose that account. So there should be a way to migrate it, but you need to deactivate that salary account. Then you have email accounts that will be deactivated. Other accounts tied to the organization, like I said before, you have your Slack accounts. If you have an organizational LinkedIn account or something, you want to deactivate access to all those accounts. You want to change passwords. You want to update the passwords. So that's with the deactivation of accounts. Then we have the payment of exit benefits. Payment of exit benefits, if any. This should be done as the final stage of the exit process. This should be done, like I said, in tandem with the finance team. They'll sit down and calculate these are the benefits that you are entitled to, and you do a breakdown and you let the employee know what the breakdown is. You share the breakdown with the employee. It should be as transparent as possible. So we move to the next slide, which speaks to the offboarding checklist. There must be an offboarding checklist. So many a times, this is where we as HR professionals do not get it right. We must have a checklist. We at times we try to do everything offhand, and we say that, oh, I know what we're supposed to do. We're just supposed to do this, do this, do that. And at the end of the day, you find out that the employee leaves and you have not covered all the grounds. Then the employee is leaving, and then you're calling the employee, oh, that password you gave me was not working. So what if the employee has left and you are not able to access that person again? What happens to that account? For instance, if the person has been the one managing, let's say your Zoom account, for instance, and you've not gotten the password to it, you've not changed the password, you've not tried it out to see whether this password that this person gave is the right one, how do you then manage that situation? So it is important to have a checklist that must be signed off by all the stakeholders to the exit process. Who are the stakeholders in this case? Stakeholders will be the team leads who have one duty or the other to perform for the exit process to be complete. So you have several stakeholders. Stakeholders, basically, when you're talking about offboarding now, you're looking at admin, you're looking at HR, you're looking at finance, you're looking at line manager, you're looking at IT. If in case of a project, you're looking at some project managers. So those are the stakeholders. So for the admin, what is the role of the admin in this offboarding checklist? The admin person collects all the assets owned by the organization, official cars, maybe laptops, keys to the office. If the person is in charge is holding any keys, the admin person collects it. Sometimes you have the biometric passes for some organizations. Admin person collects that as well. Then HR basically is the staff ID after the resignation letter. You've collected the resignation letter, then you'd move on to collect the staff identity card. Then finance, what finance does is to deactivate all the perks that the staff is entitled to. So the staff is entitled to salaries. You remove the person from the payroll. This is extremely important. I've experienced a situation where an exiting employee, he left the organization, and both HR and finance forgot to remove the person from pay sheet. I found out that the person was collecting salaries until there was a time that a salary review was to be done, and the name of the employee was still on the pay sheet, collected salaries for about 5 months. So we had to start chasing the employee up and down. Please, you are owing us money. And the employee says, oh, okay, it's not my fault that you paid into my account. But then several threats went out. Well, you were supposed to declare it when you saw salary after you had exited, and after your exit pay had been given to you, you were still collecting it. You should have alerted the organization and paid back. So you don't want a messy situation like that, especially where maybe the employee left on not so good terms. You don't want to start reopening old wounds and telling the employee that you have to pay back. And what if the employee had spent the money? The money is gone. The person will just say, in the scenario I painted the other time, the employee did not finish paying all the money. I don't remember the employee returning everything, because as at that time, the person now said, oh, I was owing some people, and immediately money hit my accounts. There was a direct debit and all of that. So it was impossible then to get all of the monies back. So finance wants to be on top of that. And then also there are some little, not only the pay sheets, there are some little perks as well. You look at airtime allowance. Some people get airtime, and you find out that the person continues getting airtime, and you're not sure of it's not. Those are little things that might go unnoticed if there's no checklist. But if there's a checklist, you already have it on the checklist that this is what HR is supposed to collect, and then HR collects it and signs off. This is what finance is supposed to do. Finance does it and signs off. So we have that checklist to guide us. Then we have the line manager about the handover note and seamless transition to the successor. So the line manager also must be involved, must be on this checklist. After collecting the handover note and looking at it, you'd sign off. So for this handover notes, in the exit policy, some exit policies have it that if you don't have your handover note and you don't have the knowledge transfer session, you won't get your exit pay, because the handover note is actually very, very important. Otherwise, the person coming in might come in and the person is groping about in the dark, especially where you don't have somebody who has worked closely with the exiting employee, or you have the exiting employee being alone in that department. You have some standalone units that the person has been working alone and there's no handover notes, there's nothing, the new person comes in and doesn't know what to do. But the person has collected the exit pay and zoomed off. So you can't really tell, and especially if it's a technical area, maybe you have someone working in IT, for instance, or someone working in web design or something, or a graphics person. Not everybody can understand what the person is doing, except the person coming in is a technical person as well. So you want to have a proper handover notes and seamless transition to the successor. Then IT, we have the activation of staff email. I've spoken to this already. And we also have tokens and other accounts that the IT person would deactivate. So it must be emphasized that the checklist must be signed off. The checklist must be signed off. It must be documented. It must be documented. And another thing that must be documented, is the exit interview process, exit interview session. It must be documented and signed off by the exiting employee, and by the person who took the session. So you want to sign off and document everything in the staff file. So you have the physical staff file, you have staff files on Google Drive these days, and other platforms like Bamboo HR, you have the staff files there. You want to document all of these things for reference purposes, because in future, the person can come back and say, I didn't say this, that's for the exit session. Or the person can say that, yes, I did hand over properly, but then you find out that the person did not do a proper handover. So that's for the offboarding checklist. So we've spoken to effective offboarding, but there are advantages to this process. An exiting staff is the greatest ambassador of an organization. So who is an ambassador? Yeah, an ambassador is someone who speaks who speaks about a place, and you're supposed to speak well about that place, ambassador of Nigeria to Ghana, high commissioners, they are ambassadors, they're supposed to speak well about the organization. There was an organization recently that I came across. One lady had joined the organization, and 2 weeks into her joining the organization, she tendered her resignation, and I was asking her, she told me about it, and I said, why did you leave the organization? And she said, I checked Glassdoor, and I saw the reviews on Glassdoor, and the reviews on Glassdoor were said the organization is toxic, and I don't even know why I went ahead to join. So, and the people who had put the reviews there would have been people who had left, or even current employees. They go on Glassdoor and they sign up and they put these reviews there. So you want good reviews about your organization, and the exiting employee is one of the greatest ambassadors you can have of an organization. You want the good news to spread about, especially if the organization is one that sells goods and products. You want more customers. You want this person to go and say that, oh, they're doing well there. It's just circumstances I just had to leave, So you want to treat your exiting staff very, 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 very well. This is because the staff has experienced firsthand the total employee life cycle at that organization and can tell a good or bad story about such experience. So the total employee life cycle, starting from even the interview process, the onboarding, even payment of salaries, whether the salaries are always late, how the culture is in that environment, whether they get enough trainings, whether they get enough salary reviews, anything that they can talk about and exiting staff can actually talk about it. And the interesting thing is that people would believe them, because it's just like being there, done that. So people will believe them, and they will take that information very, very importantly, especially, and if there's someone who has like the lady I spoke about that had gone to Glassdoor to check the reviews, after checking the reviews, still said, okay, let me still join, and then joins and says, and I saw this thing, why did I join? So in such an instance, if someone else hears about the organization and the lady hears that person wants to join, the lady will be the first to say, no, you can't join that. You just can't go there. I read the reviews, I didn't believe, but I still went ahead. So I've experienced it live and direct. So you don't want to, let me use this word, you don't want to mess with your employees. And it's the current employees that become the exiting employees. So you want to treat your employees right. So these are some of the advantages of effective offboarding. It protects the brand. I've spoken extensively to that. It protects the name of the organization. What does this organization do? How is this organization like? It protects that brand. Then former employees can return to work in a different capacity. I know of someone who had left an organization, a multinational. The person left the organization, I think, when a person was a management trainee, and the person returned to the organization as a director much, much later, maybe 15 years down the line. So if, as a management trainee, the person did not like the organization, or the organization was not a good organization at that time, the person wouldn't have come back to work with the organization. I know of another employee who had left. The person had actually left an organization to go to another organization. The person left the first organization A, went to the second place, and the person had not resigned from organization A, took their vacation and went to organization B to just test out, okay, I want to join this place. I want to see how it is like. Person joined, I was like, these people are not ready for me. There's no table, there's no chair, the onboarding experience wasn't good at all. The person left and went back to organization A. Imagine if organization A was not a very good organization, the person would have maybe just decided to just move from there, or just take up the other offer like that. But the person went back to organization A, and the person stayed on for, I think, another 3-4 years at organization A before they eventually left. So former employees can return to work in a different capacity. So you want to treat your employees right. Then it improves the morale. So current employees watch how they'll be treated upon exit. So your current employees are looking at how HR has made the announcements about this person leaving. Oh, that could be me tomorrow. So is that how they're going to announce my exit? as if, oh, I didn't contribute anything to the organization? Is that how it's going to be hush-hush around? Is that how maybe your exit pay is not, the exit pay is not paid on time, and the person's like, oh, so that's how it's going to be me. The person sees themselves in those shoes, but it improves the morale if current employees see that, oh, they're treating this person that is exiting right. So the person also, I wouldn't say the person looks forward to leaving, but the person knows that upon exit, they will be treated right. Prevents or reduces legal issues. Now, I'd spoken a bit about the legal side of it. I'd experienced a situation where the exit policy of an organization was not in sync with the labor law of a particular country. And then this employee had been messing up, this employee had been disappearing up and down, and I'd had many benefits from the organization. And so eventually when the organization felt, oh, this person can't stay with us again, the organization then terminated the services of the employee, but terminated rightfully, in their opinion, according to their exit policy at the time. However, yeah, so when this person was leaving, they wrote their resignation letter. They were told to resign. They wrote their resignation letter, and then they left, albeit peacefully. We all thought it was peacefully, and all of a sudden, the person comes back and slams a lawsuit on the organization, bringing all sorts of allegations. I wasn't, my resignation was forced. It's not in line with the label of my country. This was what was supposed to be done. This was not done. This was not done. And looking at the exit policy, it was the HR followed, and the organization followed all the steps, or so it seemed. But in line with the labor law of that particular country, it was not what was supposed to be done. And so there was an issue going to the trying to settle out of court at this time. And even the amount of money that was paid out to the employee was a huge loss to the organization, because the organization was now trying to protect their name and trying to protect any further litigation issue. So you want to prevent or reduce as much as possible any legal issues. So you want to effectively offboard an employee. Then we look at the continued relationship with exiting employees. So you want a situation where your exiting employee can come back to the organization, and some exiting employees, they come back as consultants to the organization. They come back, and even the relationship, you maintain a relationship with them, because you might need them, they might need you. It's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way relationship. You have programs, maybe you are having an anniversary, and you can't call your employee that has left to come and give a good story about their time as while they were there. So one of the advantages of effective offboarding is the continued relationship with the exiting employees. Other advantages, it helps improve the current culture and processes based on feedback from exiting employees. This is where the feedback session is in the exit interview, during the exit interview session. So this exiting employee gives feedback about the current culture, the processes. This is what has not been working for us. This is what is making me leave. Exactly. Okay, if there are questions like, if this were to change, would you consider coming back, or would you stay? Okay, if this were to change, although I've made up my mind to leave, if this was put in place, I wouldn't have considered leaving the organization in the first place. And then maybe after this, you want to conduct a survey. You want to do an employee satisfaction survey or an employee engagement survey to see to test the current temperature in the room, to see, okay, this is the culture we're at now. This is what the exiting employee is saying, and these are the things that we can improve on. So that also helps with your, reduce the turnover in the organization at the time, once you get feedback from the exiting employees. Then it protects company data. Now, if you have an effective offboarding session, depending on how important or how high ranking the exiting employee is, the person is in charge, the person has company data in their possession. You want to protect your data. You don't want a situation where the employee is just waiting for the day he's going to resign, and before he resigns, because definitely the person might have known that I'm going to leave very soon, and the person begins to export your data little by little and comes to use it against you. So you don't want a situation like that. But if you effectively offboard that employee, you can rest assured that your data is safe. And once the person transfers the data, the person would relinquish all access to it, all rights to it, because you can't say that in an organization, even when an employee leaves, the person doesn't know some of the things you've been doing. The person knows, but you want to protect your data. Then it prevents misuse of your assets. Once the employee knows that, oh, this organization has treated me well, and I'm going to return this laptop to them, the person wants to use the laptop well, not that, oh, this laptop, I'm going to use it in such a way that these 6 months remaining before I leave, all the keypads will remove or something. It depends on how the organization has treated them in that time. So you want to prevent the misuse of your assets. You want to effectively offboard this person. We've spoken to effective transfer of knowledge. Effective transfer of knowledge ties into the next one on the slide, which is effective succession and business continuity. For business continuity, because you don't want your work to stop. It's just like somebody going on vacation and doesn't hand over properly, and then you're wondering where, and the person goes off to somewhere there's no internet, for instance. Next person can't continue, and maybe the HR manager goes on leave, for instance. You're in the middle of appraisals, you can't do anything without this person. The work stops, and then you have to pick it up again. So you'll pick up the work definitely. There's no vacuum in life. However, the rate at which the work will pick up again, and you might have lost some things, you might have lost some information in that time. So when you effectively offboard, you have a transfer of knowledge to the next person. So, and it also helps with your succession planning. When somebody leaves, you're able to look at the plan again. You go back to the drawing board and you look at your plan, and you want to be sure that we have, okay, Mr. A has left now. What if Mr. B leaves? What's going to happen? Who will be next in line? So you want to go back to drawing board and look at that, and look at your succession plan again. So it also helps with business continuity. Let me pause here to ask if we have any questions before we move to the case study. Mr. Diosho.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think we can take questions and contributions. Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Already, I saw quite a number of questions as the session was going on. So what I'm going to do, madam, is to drop them again in the chat box. You don't have to respond in order of how they are here. You can pick as convenient and respond to the ones you want to respond to. If you still have additional questions, you can still drop, and then we'll also encourage people who have questions or contributions to raise their hands so that we can recognize them and enable them to unmute. I've dropped the questions already, so you can just pick them, just read the questions and respond. Meanwhile, I think I see a hand up, so I think we'll call that person first while you just count through the question. Alazan, good evening. Alazan, go on with your question or contribution, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much, madam. This is so interesting. Really appreciate you. Thank you, sir, Mr. Diosho. Thank you for your time. Always, we really appreciate you. I've always been in your class. It's so educative. My question is, for employee, during the notice period, there are some policies which state the notice periods under termination. That if an employee give 1 month notice period, he or she is entitled to salary in lieu, just employee. And in another way around, if a company, an organization want to terminate an employee and they pay a salary in lieu, whichever case it may be. My question is on a resignation, if an employee give a month notice and serve the month notice, what are the benefits attached to? Is it the days the employee work for that will be paid off, or there are some benefit attached to such employee?
All right, thank you very much for your question. So when you have a notice period, say the person has worked for, the notice period is supposed to be a month, for instance, like you said, and the person gives that month notice. Assuming, let's say salaries were paid on the 26th, and then the person resigns, okay, the person resigned on the 12th. Let's say the person resigned on the 12th, it took effect on the 12th, and the person was supposed to give notice period. Salaries are usually paid on the 26th. So the person will get the salary of that month for 26th, but the notice period is still running. So the notice period, the final working day is supposed to be the following month, maybe on the 12th. So the person will get the salary up until the 12th of the following month. Now, the other benefits are company dependent. They are companies, organization specific. You might have, in some policies, you have that someone has worked for 3 years, you get extra benefits of maybe 2 weeks pay or something. This person has worked for maybe 5 years, you can go with the laptop. This person has worked for, there can be additional benefits, but that would then be company specific. But so the question that you've asked, the person works for 1 month, you get the pay up until the last working day. So even if you got some salaries were paid in the middle of the month, you got salaries on the 26th or on the 30th, and the notice period is still running till the next month, maybe 10 days into the next month, the person gets the salary up until those 10 days that they have worked. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. Now, the employee give 1 month notice, which, for instance, he has served the 1 month notice. And during this notice period, the employee is still working, is still rendering service to the organization. It means that any payment that is due to him is the service he has rendered. My question is there no other benefit that an organization is supposed to give to this employee who might have worked for a longer period without the service is rendered for that period? Maybe he give 1 month notice, he has worked for that one particular month notice. Is there no anything that is a company should give? Because we have some organizations that will not give anything at all, and other organizations give. Why is it so? That is my question.
Yes, so thank you very much. It's neither here nor there, and you can't really force an organization to give a benefit. It depends, one, on the organization's purse. So you can't say that because the multinationals of this world, maybe you've worked 10 years, they give you so much money when you're leaving. You can't say that another organization should be compelled to do the same. However, that's why we as HR professionals are also there to advise management, to advise leadership on the right path to take. And that's why when I was speaking initially, I think it was the second slide that spoke to best practices, and I also mentioned global practices. So you want to see how the world is going, where the world is moving towards, what practices the world is coming up with in recent times that would also help with your policies. So even as an HR professional, you want to look at all these practices, and then you want to advise management. Where I work, when I got in the exit policy, we had an exit policy, but the payment wasn't so much. It wasn't something to look forward to. However, when we got in, we had a meeting with leadership, and yes, there was a budget, and also, it also depends on the leadership management that you're working with. There might not be the budget, but the management is willing to look into it at a future date, and they're willing to take it up and say, okay, we can't do that this year, but we can do it from next year. So, but your place as an HR professional is to advise management from time to time. You don't have to wait until the time when the person is leaving, when you have an exit, but you want to look at your policies holistically, and you want to then use it to advise management. But you can't compel them to give maybe what they don't have. Even if they have it, you can't compel them to give it. The ideal thing, like I said in the beginning, is to have a policy. If you have it in the policy, then you can enforce it. However, if you don't have it in the policy, you cannot enforce it. So the major thing is to work on your policy first as a HR person, and then from there, you can start to enforce what you have in your policy. Thank you.
Just to quickly add, before we invite Mr. Akin to share his question or comments or both, is that many organizations who also have like a payout of some sort to people who exit typically will time it. For example, 5 years, you get something, 10 years, you get much more, 15 years, you get much more. It is not actually just because they want to give payouts to people who are exiting. It is actually a retention strategy, such that, for example, if they give you a payout after 5 years, if you are on year 3 or year 4, you will think twice before leaving. You will say, let me clock that 5 years. So it's actually some sort of retention strategy, just to quickly add. Mr. Derrida, you can please ask your question or share your contributions and thoughts on this subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. And I want to especially thank the facilitator of tonight. So my little contribution is just that, just like we have the adage, you cannot give what you don't have. As a company, once a policy is not expressly stated in writing, that means there's no way you can apply it. Just as Mr. Adeosun has just said, so it is a way of retaining the workforce in a company. So you can put it in brackets, maybe for as many that work under 5 years, 0 to 5 years. So you get also amount when you are leaving the company, 5 to 10 years, and so on and so forth. When you will have it in bracket like that, so it will be a kind of opportunity for employee to work for a certain period of time in an organization. Then while they are leaving, since they are entitled to it, you pay them. But when you don't have it as a form of policy in a company, there is no way you can apply it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the contribution.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I see another hand up. Peace, you can unmute and speak. Peace, kindly unmute and speak.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Also, thank you, the facilitator, for good work done. There's this scenario of an employee exiting, though there was an issue between him and the company. So he had some of the company's assets in his care. So that exit was not well done. So at the end of the day, his benefit was not paid, neither was the assets in his care returned. So the company is asking that he return the assets in his care, and he is saying until he gets his terminal benefit, he's not going to return those assets. And the asset is worth millions of naira. So the company is saying, if you want to get the asset in your care has nothing to do with your benefits. The policy says that you have to return all the assets in your care first. So that is the scenario. What do you have to advise on that?
So there really isn't anything you can do regarding that. The only thing you can do, maybe you want to take legal action against the person. However, I would say here that the issue basically is how the employee has been treated from. Maybe I wouldn't want to say that. I wouldn't want to conclude that the employee is just a bad employee, because really, like I said, when the employee is exiting, the employee carries memories of how I've been treated, and it's as if I'm waiting for payback time. How am I going to treat them when I'm leaving? Now it's my time. It's my time to take control. So how has the employee been treated? So that's why I say that we should as HR professionals guide management, guide leadership when we treat employees. Current employees become exiting employees, and they can actually, permit my use of the word, hold us by the balls, hold the organization by its balls, because now you have assets in the person's care, and the person is not giving up. The only thing you can do is to go legal with it, and to, maybe you have a legal team or something to take it up. Maybe you have the industrial law court or something to go there. That's the only recourse you have. Otherwise, there's nothing you can do, because there's no assurance that if you pay the benefits, the the person is going to release the assets. What can also be done is to maybe pay, as a good show of faith, pay half of the benefits, and just to show that, okay, we're ready to pay your benefits, but we're waiting for our assets. So pay part of it, maybe a quarter of it, and then say that upon payment, maybe upon giving, maybe the person has 3 assets with them, for instance, give back 2, we give you half of the payment, give back the remaining 1, and then we give maybe a staggered process like that, so that then the employee also believe, because it's a lack of trust that I see there. If the employee doesn't trust that, they will pay. That's why the employee is holding them by the jugular to say that you must pay me my benefits before I release this. So that's a way I think they can go about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Funmilola, please, you can unmute to make your comments or share your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our facilitator, brilliant one, and I've learned a whole lot because our exit process hasn't been going this route. What we just do is send exit interview, they fill, and that's all. For time, maybe if we have time, we can just engage them for proper interview, and that is it. So we've not really been taking exits super proper as it should, documentation and all, and I really learned a whole lot. So I want to ask also, in place of dismissal, how do we manage exits? How do we manage exits? Because there was someone we terminated the appointment with us, and immediately he left immediately. So there was no way to even call him back. There was a fraudulent act. So there was no way we could call him back to ask this and that. And after the day he left, that was all. So how do you think we can properly manage exits in this regard of what we've learned today? Thank you very much. And also, as regards the most times, what I notice, I'm a year plus where I am, and what I notice is it's only those on the managerial position we celebrate majorly when leaving, and what they do is just have maybe lunch or dinner with the person. And so when I got in, I had to introduce, okay, let's have it this way. Let's meet, even if it's an everybody meet, every staff, let's meet. Let's have one word or two about to speak about the person and appreciate. Let's do a card or cake if necessary. And so we do, but because we have branches elsewhere, we only can do for those in HQ. So, and we also had field people that work on the field. We've not been able to do anything for them. So how do you think it's best to also extend this love to them? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your questions on the termination. So where you have a termination, I'd spoken to that also, and I'd said that we have an ideal situation of how offboarding should effectively be managed. However, where you have an involuntary exit, for instance, where it is forced or where there are some other issues, you really cannot force the person to come back to say that I'm not even sure you want to do a farewell for such a person in case of a fraud. And I'm sure that you would want to have recovered your assets before you terminate that person. So it would not apply. The ideal situation is where we're talking about, but once you have a termination, I'm not sure you want to. I've had there have been several scenarios that I've had that, yeah, my boss had said, oh, did you get an exit interview session with this person? And I'm like, the person would be told to leave immediately. How am I supposed to get an exit interview session with that person? So you can't get an exit interview. The person would even be hostile to you, unless you as the HR person had kind of maybe maintained, you had a relationship with the person beyond official work, or even officially you had related to the person well. You could there's a way you could go about it, but on plain official terms, I'm not sure you can get you can effectively offboard that person. But I'm not also sure that I don't think that the person would also go about mouthing the organization, which is why the announcements then becomes absolutely necessary. You want to, many of us, we try to, we're human, yeah, but we want to play on the emotional part and not announce to organizations. Okay, I've had a scenario where somebody who had spent a long time in the organization, over 5 years, was told to leave because of on grounds of integrity. We had an issue with the announcement, and when we did announce, people did not believe, and they were like, "Oh no, how could people? How are we sure he did this? How are we sure this person did that?" But HR had announced, so it's left to the team members, staff to accept it or not accept it. But HR had announced and tried to make it as transparent as possible. So it was HR's word against that person. So immediately the exits happens, announce, so you can forestall any bad mouthing of the organization. So that's about the termination. Then you spoke about the farewell. So farewell, like I said earlier, I mentioned a staff that left after a month, and we organized something for the person. Person was not even based in the country where HR was based or where the HQ was, but we did an e-farewell. So everybody gathered on Zoom and everybody said, "Oh, you've done well, you've done this, what you've done, this, what you've done," you know. So, and like it's in the slides, it's not compulsory, there's drinks or there's refreshments, depending on the budget. But if you have a budget for it, and even if the person is not in your location, you could send something as a token to the person, celebrate yourself there, you're exiting, and we're not able to throw a party for you. And for the people on the field also, you could do that. If you have 3 field members going together, they could have a session to just greet the person, congratulate the person, just a mini session. It doesn't have to be the whole day shut down, but just something to appreciate the person. Even if it's 5 minutes, you used to appreciate the person knows that this session was mainly for me, and it should be for all cadres, it should be for all levels. We've seen where drivers are celebrated more than managing directors because the driver contributed so much to the organization. So irrespective of the person's level, irrespective of the cadre or person in the organization, we should be able to celebrate them as long as they had been able to contribute 1 or 2 things to the growth of that organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, those questions, and also thank you to our amazing facilitator for those responses. I'll call on my sister, Greatness Olorunfemi. You have the floor, your questions or contributions or both.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Oluyemi, for all that you're doing for us. And thank you to the facilitator as well. I just wanted to make a comment on the conversation regarding the employee that withheld the company's assets and, of course, the delay. The same thing happened to me in an organization. I didn't think they were going to withhold my benefits because I had the company's assets with me. It was just because I relocated to Abuja and it was a virtual role. So I sent it through someone basically, and the person delayed in sending it to them. And so I got this mail that, oh, they were going to deduct the amount of the assets from my benefit. And I said, oh no, don't deduct it, just hold on. The assets will get to you. Do you know they got the asset and they still sent me an email they were going to, they started telling me, oh, there were some charts that they were expecting me to keep because I deleted those charts. They were not going to pay me my money. And I'm like, I don't understand. These were confidential matters. I could not keep those charts. It really got so dirty and messy that I was just like, okay, this is why some people decide to be wicked. But I didn't have that. It didn't even cross my mind to say withhold the phone till you get. So a lot of people started telling me, oh, Greatness, you would have allowed them to deduct the money for the asset and then pay you your benefit. So I can relate to that person that is doing them shaggy. I don't even know the comment to make. If you can just guide me. I don't know. Honestly, it pained me. Hey. I don't know. I wanted to ask, that was my experience, and it was so painful. You know how painful it is that, oh, you did the right thing, you wanted integrity. I told them, no, don't pay me part payments. Just wait till you get the asset. I used money to ensure that asset got to them. It was so how do you now talk to we that we did the right thing and they still decide to be mad?
So let me quickly make a comment here. So yeah, 2 things. When organizations decide to hold benefits, it's supposed to be a sort of security for their assets to get back to them. It's supposed to be a sort of a lien, and not particularly because the organization is wicked. However, the second thing I would like to say is that the HR professional now is the one who steps in, because HR professionals, we wear 2 caps. We wear cap of management and wear cap of employee. So you must remember as HR also that you are first an employee. Yes, you've been recruited, hired by the management to do their bidding, but then also you're supposed to guide employees. You wear both caps, so you must know where to tilt, what cap to wear at what point in time. So at that time, the HR person should actually advise management that release this person while also trying to speak to the staff. Because, you know, at times you advise management to do the right thing and then the staff too goes crazy. So you blame yourself for stepping in. So you want to balance yourself. Even as HR person, you're watching your back. Say this staff, you know, like we say in Yoruba, don't cover me, don't cobalize me because I'm trying to help you. Yeah. Because at times you stick out your neck for staff and then you find out that you did it for the first person and the second person just goes crazy. And you're like, no, I'm not going to do this again. You understand? So HR person should be able to stand, to step in, to be able to be able to bridge the gap. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Greatness. Someone on the chat box, my brother Ali Ibrahim says, no matter what, keep doing the right thing. I concur. Let's go over to my sister, my boss, Rita Babalola. You have the floor, madam.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, facilitator. I enjoyed the facilitation today or the topic. I want to share some experiences anyway. Sometimes we have employees and employers from hell. We all pray as HR practitioners that we will never meet them. Employees sometimes can be hellish in terms of their behavior. I remember when I started my business, and my business is a small business, or was a small business then. And then when people leave, we usually have like an exit policy where we celebrate, we dance and things like that. But then when I saw that the rate of leaving in terms of like everybody relocating to UK, Canada and things like that was becoming too much, the budget, we stopped it. But do you believe that one person got offended because I had to put a stop like, oh, you know what, we can't be celebrating everybody at every point in time. Normally when somebody is leaving, we celebrate then maybe like a cash award, especially those one going to school in UK or Canada, probably like, oh, let me give something out to this person. This person has stayed long. And then there was this particular employee that we had to stop. We stopped it before the person said he was relocating to UK. And before we knew it, it was just a tirade. It was like things like he kept saying to himself, it was like he wasn't going to drop this because the others were sent forth like properly. He wasn't sent forth. But then, just like what the facilitator said, you always want to look at the budget. For bigger organizations, there are policies, there are processes that can be followed. But small businesses may really not have that effective offboarding processes. In terms of documentations, I read somewhere in the chat room now that sometimes people just tell you something because they know they are afraid. They don't want to say something bad. And you as the HR practitioner, you just have to stand in between. You know, what this person is saying is just there for formality. Because if you're talking about what about the MD, what about the management staff, they won't be able to say anything negative, honestly. They will just probably say what you want to hear and then leave. At the end of the day, by the time you get to see what has been written down in the exit form, it's a different ball game. It's not even related to what has been written. And that's because they fear a backlash in the sense that, oh, I still get to be paid my salary. I don't want to hear any case, especially for small businesses. So for as HR practitioners, I would just enjoy it. Let's just do the right thing, no matter what. It's easier said than done. But there have occurrences where things will happen. It will test your patience. They will test your knowledge. And you just find yourself at the end of the day, are you doing the right thing? Because one day you're going to also exit the organization and another person is going to do that. So I just want to enjoy everybody, do the right thing, irrespective of who or who is leaving the organization and who is at that bit at that time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Let me add.
Someone is saying that we shouldn't forget the questions in the chat box. So
okay, let me really add something to what the madam said. So about the exit interviews. So what I try to do, personally, I try to have a relationship with staff. Personally, I try to reach out to staff away from the office. Officially, I have official relationship. Like I tell them that, you know, at times when I talk to my staff, they ask me, are you talking to us as OINDA or you're talking to us as HR? So they know which to expect because I wear the two caps of OINDA and HR. I know that I'm an employee, so I don't want to also lose that. And I don't want to also lose relationships outside of the office because I'm working as a management staff. So want to remember that. So what I do, because I have a relationship with them, during exit interviews, they write what they want to write, but I get what I know. I get what is the right thing. And at the end of the day, I go to my boss and I say that, hey, what this person wrote is formal, but this is what they are saying. You know, so at times my boss too tests the waters and says that, oh, what I told him informally is actually true, but it's different what you're saying on paper. So if we have a relationship and remember that we also are employees, we'll know how to balance it, and we'll be able to get information. They'll even give us information without waiting for exit interview. So I can't see the questions in the chats again. Okay, I'm seeing, oh. Okay.
There are questions.
I've seen there are questions. Okay, I've seen one. Okay. Is it best practice to use leave period as notice period? So best practice is now that word best practice, you know, best practice to company A is different from best practice to company B. However, what I believe is that you shouldn't use your leave period as notice period, because your notice period is supposed to be a time of transition. It's supposed to be a time of handing over. So, and also, if you're going to another organization and they ask you, how soon can you join? And you're telling them immediately. And I'm working in a place that sends signals to me as a HR person. You're coming to join me immediately and you're working in a place. How are you going to? That means when you leave my organization as well, you're going to leave immediately without handing over. So the leave period should be calculated and paid to the person, and not as a notice period. There should be notice period and there should be the leave period. Exit interview, some people just say nice things because they have escaped and don't want bad reference. I've spoken to that if you have a relationship with them as HR, you should be able to get your exit interview offline. What's the difference between the exit certificate and exit reference letter? So I spoke to that. I said exit certificates is used in Francophone countries, basically. Francophone countries require you to get an exit certificate. So even if the employee works in your organization for 1 day, you have to give an exit certificate stating the time he worked, stating his name, stating his date of birth, stating the place he worked. It doesn't have to say that the person did well or not. And then the exit reference letter comes when the person has left the organization. You have a reference letter coming from a previous, the employer, current employer, requesting for a recommendation. So the difference is the recommendation. There's a recommendation in exit reference letter, and the exit certificate just bears the some details of the employee. So must notice of resignation be accepted by the organization? What can the exiting staff do if there is no acknowledgement from HR and the resignation is rejected by HR? So notice of resignation ideally should be accepted. If the notice is not accepted, that means they still see you as an employee. They won't pay you any benefits. Ideally, HR should acknowledge. The acknowledgement doesn't mean that it has been accepted, but HR should acknowledge that the resignation has been received. I acknowledge it, I receive it, doesn't mean that I accept the contents, you know. So then if the resignation is rejected by HR, you can't move on. Because it will hold you down. You can't get a reference from that organization. It's not like you can't move on. You can leave, but you won't get your exit benefits. You won't be able to get a reference letter from such an organization because they feel you are still owing them some things. So you should be able to close that gap. It's not in every case that the HR would accept your resignation. It's not in every case. There might be some issues. And, you know, like I said, some HR people cannot manage it well because they are reporting to management. Management says, don't accept it. So they don't accept as a resignation. But what can you do if you're able to forfeit everything you have and move on? Maybe the environment is toxic. There are some places I've moved on from that I've just felt it's not worth it. You just move on and you don't mention the place in your CV because it's just a bad experience, just a bad pill in your mouth. So you just move on and just forfeit everything you can forfeit in that case. But as much as possible, try to ensure that the resignation is accepted by HR. Is there such a thing as temporary resignation? If yes, is there a need for the exit procedure? I don't understand what is meant by a temporary resignation. A resignation is a separation. A separation is permanent. So I don't understand what the person means by temporary resignation. Suppose a staff owes the organization and is not offsetting the debts before his or her last working day. Is it okay to issue an acceptance letter? Yeah, you can accept the letter. However, you state in the benefits, you state the debts and you'd ask how the person wants to pay back. If the person doesn't have entitlements, ask how the person is going to pay back. But maybe before accepting, you can just acknowledge first and ask about the debts first and ask how the person is going to pay. Let the person set out the payment process before you accept or before you finally release the person. So those are all the questions I see for now.
So there's one question here. I will read it. It's from Let's see.
Okay.
I think there's a question from Deborah. I'll just read it. There is a staff who resigned and gave an exit day for September 4, but he pleaded to leave on 31st of August as he had something important to attend to. He was granted on the agreement that work remotely till 13th, when his successor will resume. He left, and on the 12th, he started behaving funny, and he has not returned the company laptop. What should the HR do in this situation? I think this is a life situation for somebody.
Okay, so the person, so what the person, the HR can write to the person. You know, you write to them, you tell them you're going to get legal involved in case you have a legal team. If you don't have a legal team, you know that the person, and then you can write and threaten, because the person is still going to come for references anyway. And if you are so lucky to know where the person works, a last resort is to write to the HR of the organization to say that this person has left and on this was the condition. Because like we have said before, some staff can make you actually think twice before you want to render help to the other person. So you can write first to the person, try to engage the person verbally, well, make sure that it's documented so that you can have those evidences that I did speak to you, you agreed on this, and you said that you were going to return the laptop and you didn't return it, right? And just keep writing, and once you are written, maybe first time, the second time you've told the person that you're going to get to the company and they don't still come back, then you can write to the organization.
Okay, somebody is saying, at what point do you involve the guarantors?
Okay, you involve the guarantors where you have assets that are above the benefits that the employee is supposed to get. So the person has assets. Well, it's not every organization that has that makes guarantors part of the process. But when you have guarantors, you can let the employee first know that I'm going to involve your guarantors. But the interesting thing is that some guarantors are worse than the employees, so you might not even get anything from them. You know, so you want to also be sure of the guarantors you have put on ground. You want to verify them. I've worked in a place before where the guarantors, you know, you take the guarantor's details and you actually go and stamp it in court. So you show it to the guarantor that this is stamped. If you dare run away, we have the courts, we have it in the court's file. So that was as far as the organization went at that time. But you know, it was employees also that made the organization take that ruthless action, you know, to go and file in the court. So when you have that, you show it to the guarantor, I have this against you, the court will come after you. So you can then, if the asset, let's say, is 5 million naira, you can have, and the benefit is 2 million naira, you can let the person know that these assets, if you don't return them, we're going to debit them, or we're going to then get your guarantors involved. So most times when assets are involved, that's when you get the guarantors involved. And when the employee is unresponsive, and sometimes the employee, you just try to read them, person just goes incommunicado. So that's when you involve the guarantors.
Another question here says, for an exit in November, can exited employees get end of year bonus, assuming that will be December or in the next year? Also, where a company pays bonuses in Q1 of the next year, can exited employees be paid bonuses?
Okay, so this actually, I'll wait till I have a scenario question. Okay, it's almost time. Okay, let me just take it here because the scenario question, let me quickly just move to that scenario before I answer that question. It says here that, oh, sorry. Yes. A staff who has worked at an organization for 3 years sends his letter of resignation to you as the human resource lead. He has dated the letter November 20, and his last working day is December 10. As the HR lead and a member of the management team, you are aware that 13th month salaries are to be paid on December 30 to active staff only. What would you do? So I think that ties into that question here. It's a scenario. So in this case, what should be done? Because I see the question now is, can exited employees get end of year bonus? So end of year bonus ideally is paid to active staff. So it depends on you as the HR. You can want to stick your neck out, and in this scenario, you can what happened was that the HR then spoke to the staff and asked, where are you going to? It's almost the end of the year. You're not going to receive any salaries after December 10. So why are you in a hurry to leave? Well, the person says, oh, I'm just tired. Staff can be funny at times. You're just tired and you're just leaving. Why don't you work till the end of the year? And the person worked till the end of the year, and the person then got the end of year bonus, because end of year bonus is for active staff. 13th month is for active staff. So if the person resigns December 29 and the 13th month supposed to be paid on December 30, the person forfeits it. So that's where, even as HR people, want to try and be and put on our empathy shoes and want to advise rightly to say that, why don't you wait till this time and properly hand over? You don't have to say it to the person loud and clear that wait and collect 13th month. No, you can just properly hand over, because if you're on the other side of the table, you also want the best advice. You also want somebody to guide you rightly. The person might just be in a hurry. Maybe the line manager made them angry. Let me just resign and just drop their paper, and the person forgets about the other benefits. But then for the bonus of the Q1 of the following year, ideally the person should be paid bonus, because pays bonuses in Q1 year. Bonus is for the previous year. So, but that also depends on finance. The finance team can come and say, no, the person has left. But for 13th month is usually for active staff. But for the bonus, since the person worked the previous year, ideally should be paid the following year. But if the person is not paid, you can't drag them to court, unless it's written somewhere in the policy that once you've worked in 2023, by January 2024, whether you've exited or not, you have your benefits. So the exit policy guides us a lot in all our doings.
It also helps to have a clear-cut bonus policy that clearly stipulates qualification to earn it. And all those time factors should be clearly stated. It helps so that if somebody wants to go to court, it will be clear that it wasn't malicious or he wanted to cheat, in quotes, the employee. Thank you. I think Faith wants to speak. We'll take that as the last question, and Onida can wrap up. Again, we have to exit management webinar. Faith, you can.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask my question. Many thanks to the facilitator. It was actually a very interesting and enlightening session. But I want to ask, you made a comment about an employee who submits an application for, who submits an exit, what do you call it now? A resignation, yes, and the HR did not accept. I want to ask, is there any law that says whether or not you accept my resignation, so long as I apply within the time frame, then I'm entitled to my benefits? Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, so it depends on the policy in the organization at the time. So that's why there should be an exit policy. The exit policy, you would want to check the exit policy ideally before you even resign, and you'll be checking whether there's a law that says that if my resignation is not accepted, there are some organizations that put it in black and white. If your resignation is not accepted, you don't get benefits. It's written there in black and white. So if it's written in black and white and you've seen it before you joined, which I believe that the exit policy should have been transparent to everyone, you won't be able to fight it. You won't be able to appeal it anywhere. However, if it's not written anywhere, the HR is not bound to. It's an ideal situation that the HR should accept the resignation. But I also said earlier that, it's difficult managing. You might think that it's an easy. HR is one of the most difficult roles in an organization. For finance, you just look at the figures and give it to them in black and white. We have 1 naira and it's 1 naira we have. I can't manufacture it from anywhere. But HR is a staff. HR is thinking about management. Management wants me to do this. Staff is expecting me to do this. Even me as a staff, I'm expecting this, so it's a difficult situation, and some HR people are not able to manage that relationship very well. Management tells them that you can't accept this resignation, and the HR doesn't appeal it. The HR doesn't go back to fight it. But then again, you have some HR people that have really fought it tooth and nail, but the management is still saying that you must reject this resignation. But I want to believe that there would be reasons why the HR has been told to reject the resignation, because you can't just reject a resignation and say that I'm just rejecting it without maybe some sort of expectation from the staff. Maybe the staff has something they're still owing the organization, but you can't, if they don't accept it, there will be, I don't think that they would pay your benefits. I think the acceptance should be tied to, because once they accept, that's when they know that, okay, this person is finally going, then they send you a breakdown. Is upon acceptance that they send you a breakdown of your benefits. If you don't get a breakdown of your benefits, I don't know how you know how much you are expecting. So you would get them to the point where they will accept your resignation, and then you can have your benefits, your final benefits.
Thank you so much. Let me just add one more thing.
Thank
Some
you.
organizations also have what we call like an exit clearance. Exit clearance. And what they use the exit clearance for is that several department or stakeholders, representatives sign off. So for example, IT will sign off that you have returned their gadgets, admin, HR, audit, to show that there is no ongoing investigation that you are owing or withholding information, and so on and so forth. That also helps. Again, accepting or not accepting resignation is neither here nor there. Once you say you tender your resignation, by law, you have gone. However, what may happen is there may get or may not get, depending on also if it is statutory or non-statutory. But as much as possible, one thing I'll appreciate that our facilitator for tonight, even very early in the presentation, try to communicate and cascade to us is that as much as possible, let us achieve peaceful exits. Why? They will be your brand ambassador. Okay, of course, we're not talking about maybe someone that stole or something. If you are not able to retrieve your assets or your due from the employee, even though they have resigned or exited, you can now take it further to the law enforcement agencies. You can go to court, you can go to arbitration or mediation, explore all legal routes. Someone does not have to remain your staff for you to get whatever equipment or data or information. You can use other means. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask if our facilitator has any closing or parting remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adeosun. So I have a conclusion here. Organizations should have standardized exit policies in line with the relevant labor laws. Like I said, we cannot overemphasize this. The labor laws, we must adhere to them. Then finally, in serving as management staff, HR professionals must remember that they are themselves employees, and they should therefore focus on the human in the human resources when wearing their different caps. Thank you very much, everyone. I've enjoyed myself. It has been an engaging session. Thank you, Mr. Adeosun, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been excellent, fantastic. At some point, we were 97 on the call tonight. That was rather phenomenal. Maybe a lot of people want to exit or are managing exit issues. And on behalf of everyone who joined tonight and everyone who will be watching the YouTube version, hundreds, thousands, would like to say thank you so much for your magnanimity. Thank you for taking time out of diaspora to connect with some of us here and some of us in other parts of the world across Africa. We've really learned a lot. You took a very simple topic and you provided robust, multidimensional perspective that has enriched each and every one of us. At least nobody on this call that didn't learn multiple things tonight. Thank you so much, ma. God bless you. Continue. We pray that you flourish in your ministry, your HR ministry. Good night. Bye, everyone. Let's say thank you to our facilitator, please. You can unmute if you want.
Thank you very much.
Thank
God bless
you.
Thank you very, 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 very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.